समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
If you've been readers or watchers of national interest, you know that this column is not about a simplicity. It's not about straightforward wordsmithy. It's about finding a complexity. I always try and find a complexity and then try to unravel it, find some answers. Do I always get it right? Most certainly not. Sometimes I'm able to do justice to it, sometimes not so much. Sometimes I get it very wrong as well, which I mentioned to you in the course of time. Today's column is dealing with probably the most complex issues that I've done in quite some time. It is basically arguing that in geopolitics today, the name of the game is leverage and time. What that is, I will explain. And before that, I will also answer to your question that many of you ask me, that how do I keep myself going? How do I find new ideas? How do I find new facts? And how do I find new arguments? And how am I able to deal with new complexities? I tell you, the first thing is to find a complexity. Then you learn to deal with it. I'm able to do it because I live in a newsroom. And I'm constantly living like a journalism student. There is no better school of journalism than a real newsroom. And that's the reason at ThePrint we started the Print School of Journalism, which gives you capsuled, very customized journalism teaching, where all of us, the editors here, the senior journalists, our columnists, outside experts, they hold classes over 18 weekends. This is more than enough teaching for journalism. You do not have to do a 2-year course, a 1-year course, or for heaven's sake, a 4-year undergraduate program. No, you don't need to spend that much time and that many lakhs of rupees. Also, accommodation, etc., wherever you go to college, that is not needed. The best place to learn journalism is a newsroom from actual journalists and experts. That is what the Print School of Journalism offers you. You get to intern with us in the same newsroom. You learn by working with all of us. You get your bylines. Many of the graduates of our past batches are working with us in other newsrooms. And also, you don't necessarily have to do this course to become a journalist. Doctors, engineers, corporate leaders, they've all taken this because this answers their many curiosities and also adds to their skills, because skill of communication is important for every profession now. That's the reason as I'm speaking, you are seeing many activities and many vignettes of our school activity. You are seeing many of our teachers, our classes. You also see some of our graduates who featured on the print, some who are working with us now, and also our graduates visiting our newsroom to collect their certificates. The 6th batch of the Print School of Journalism is closing now. Admissions are closing. Please don't waste time. Please do apply for admission. As I'm speaking, you are seeing instructions on how to do it. There will also be a link with the description that will take you right there. So once again, the best place to learn journalism is the newsroom, is a real newsroom. And you don't have to do it over 1, 2, 3, 4 years or spend lakhs of rupees and so much time. You can do it over 18 weeks and be taught by the finest in the profession and some of the best experts in geopolitics, economics, on Pakistan, on China, on the US, so on and so forth. That said, I'm back to my argument, which is that in geopolitics today, the name of the game is leverage and time. It isn't one versus the other. The two aren't inversely, but directly proportional. The more leverage you have, the more time is at your command. Any nation of some consequence, which is actually any sovereign nation, even the smallest, the most distant, and apparently the most marginal, is playing the same game today. Nobody has a choice. Where India stands in this equation, we will come to as this argument unfolds. Think Lesotho, a kingdom of just 23 lakh people, a landlocked highland surrounded by South Africa. It has deep and widespread poverty, among the highest HIV/AIDS prevalence, and a per capita income about a little over a half of Pakistan's. It's that poor. It also has a unique industrial strength, however, its only industrial strength. It's called the jeans hub of the world. It makes jeans for the whole world. The garment industry is its largest employer with about 50,000 people. Bulk of the exports are to the US, about 10% of Lesotho's GDP. This garment export strength was built because of the duty-free access under America's African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. Then comes Donald Trump in 2025 and forget AGOA. Lesotho was slugged in the gut with a 50% Liberation Day tariff, later reduced to 15%. Poor Lesotho can't compete with the larger Asian manufacturers, Bangladesh, Vietnam, and India included. It officially declared a state of disaster. Let's take Lesotho as our case study for a country with no leverage or time. Its economy can't even afford to wait Trump out for 3 years, minus 3 weeks, that's what remains of Trump. Then we come to the nation with the most leverage and time. You guessed it right, it's China. In trade, it has both a seller's, which is critical minerals and magnets, a seller's advantage, and a buyer's, which is soybean and corn leverage. Militarily, it's catching up with America as Trump guts Washington's alliances, and its time isn't even limited to the 3 Trump years. These are its window of opportunity. As a distracted America releases strategic pressure, China will strengthen itself so much that Trump's successors may never catch up. If poor Lesotho was our example at the bottom and China at the top, what about the rest? It does sound facetious to compare super rich Europe's predicament with poor Lesotho's, but it isn't. It isn't facetious. Let me explain. It's a fact that the Europeans realize as they sat this week at the Munich Security Conference with no leverage, that they have no leverage as they depend on the US for their defense entirely. They are beginning to spend more now on their defense, but it will take years before they can be confident of protecting themselves. Weapon systems, particularly capital assets like fighters, submarines, missiles, even something as basic as 155mm artillery ammunition isn't something you can buy at a Hamleys, a toy store, or order on Amazon. And then you have to find citizens willing to fight and train them. Even when you order weapons, the other guy, the manufacturer, then starts getting the components, etc. There is a long lead time, as there is to preparing trained armies. That leaves you no time either with Putin at your doorstep. So the Europeans have very little leverage, if any, and very little time. Now you know why I said the comparison with Lesotho is not really facetious. Then how could we list China higher than the US? The US definitely has way more leverage than China, but its time is limited to Trump's remaining 3 years or whatever remains of his 3 years. It's the largest market for everybody else, that's America. America is the largest market for everybody else's exports and has the power of tariffs which Trump is now using. It has the strongest military and all its most loyal allies of 8 decades, Europe, the United Kingdom, Japan, South Korea, Australia and Taiwan depend on it. The semi-allies or strategic partners, India included, need America or look up to America to balance a rising and difficult China. America has got the tech giants, AI leadership and global reserve currency. The fact is, however, that Trump is spending this capital rather than investing in it. The leverage is diminishing, the time ticking away. After 3 years, the US will be a different superpower. Will it be a lesser one having lost out to China? Will the allies ever trust it again? Remember that one name, that one word, not Ukraine, but Greenland. That trust will take a long time coming back if it does. America's allies would worry, what if somebody even nuttier sits in the Oval Office tomorrow? This America's time, we know, is limited to these 3 years until the next elections, or maybe even about 10 months if the midterms reduce Trump to a lame duck. And that underlines an important point. It's only the democracies that have this hard stop limitation on time. They will all face elections sometime in the next 1 to 5 years. Now let's look at Israel. Israel's leverage is undeniable and comes from history, ideology, intellect, geoeconomics, say where it's located, next to the zone that brings energy to the whole world, geoeconomics, military and intelligence power. It's essentially a Western democracy on the edge of Asia and Africa, and an indispensable ally for the US, Europe, and also India. At some point, though, after an election or through a court process, Benjamin Netanyahu will go. You might then have a different Israel post Netanyahu. Limitation of time is a feature of democracy. This does not apply to Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and most certainly not to Field Marshal for life, Asim Munir. Dictatorships, whether classical ones like North Korea or a hybrid one like Pakistan, don't have this limitation of time. Of course, funny things tend to happen in such countries that tend to change the situation dramatically, but we are not astrologers, so we are not getting there. This is the game every nation is now learning to play. Time and leverage. Some are finding new allies or seeing value among nations they had seen with marginal interest. The starkest example is India for Europe. When the final document of the India-EU trade deal is signed, its headline should be, "Thank you, Donald Trump." This changed world, this transformed world has also jolted India into discovering the virtues of freer, I didn't say free, freer trade and competitiveness. Russia, Iran, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, the UAE are all repositioning themselves in this contested, fraught space. Where does India sit on this leverage/time scale? The sobering if rude fact is, India's leverage is severely limited. Some of it became evident in the wake of Operation Sindoor, when almost the entire world are 32 strategic partnerships, including some elevated as enhanced or comprehensive strategic partnerships, counted for very little. They remained equidistant. India has some leverage, however. It's limited, as that limited leverage lies in the size of its economy and market. The way to employ that is to keep growing your GDP, which means more, even risky reform, and open up your markets. The current size and the boast of being the fourth largest economy, actually we are not as yet. It will still take a few more months. Nevertheless, we will become the fourth largest economy. That doesn't count for much unless we convince the world that we will keep growing upwards of 7.5% annually, at least over the next decade. As economist Geeta Gopinath said at Davos in January, it's simple mathematics that India will be the third largest economy by 2028 or in 2028. But it will still be a distant laggard on per capita income. Indians will still be relatively poor. India's strategic capital then isn't the size of its economy, but how fast it expands. Similarly, the markets. For them to add weight to India's comprehensive national power or CNP, they must be open to imports, to trade. Protectionism should go down, and Indian competitiveness should get better. Then the rest of the world, the US, Europe, Australia, Japan, and especially China, will see they will acquire a stake in our growth and work towards stability in bilateral relationships. That last reference is to China specifically. Stability in bilateral relationships. And time for India? Does India have time? There is sufficient continuity of policy of India not to worry about the 2029 elections. The 3 Trump years will be rough with their good, bad, or rude moments as we move from one Truth Social post to another. The biggest challenge will be to deal with Trump's nonchalance over any political sensitivities, especially when our parliament is in session. This will test the Modi government's nerve and judgment often, especially because they built the image. This government built the image. Modi government built the image of India as a global leader. Wait till Sergio Gore settles down and starts living up to his larger role as envoy to Central Asia and South Asia. This will test our 3-decade red line on dehyphenation with Pakistan and rejection of the two-country rule, which means an American leader visiting India or a Western leader visiting India and Pakistan on the same trip. Trump is there only for 3 years, but it will be a rocky 3 years. Understanding this with realism India has made quick strategic adjustments, dumped some presumptions, signed trade deals and FTAs after being mostly trade averse for more than a decade. Some hard reform has been undertaken, and most importantly, the defense budget is rising and long pending acquisitions are moving forward. This is rebuilding leverage and buying time.